Hey everybody, this is Lisa with Lisa Marie Accounting. I am the sassy Southern accountant, and if you're not familiar with me, what I do is I help online women entrepreneurs take the chaos out of their numbers, and I help make them sassy and sexy. But today, we're going to be talking with Jessica Hansen all about sassing up productivity. So without further ado, Jessica, will you please introduce yourself and give them just a little bit of background about you?
Sure. I am Jessica Hansen, and I am a success coach. And what I do is turn chaos into order for your business. And so not specifically about the numbers like what Lisa does, but more on the systems and process side. So I tend to call myself a system magician. And what I do is create the magic formula to prevent your business failure. And so I have been doing this for a little over a year, but I have a background in this kind of work for over 20 years, actually. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So I like your name where you say you consider yourself a system magician. So tell me, what is your why? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I do what I do because I think that specifically the mom entrepreneur really has a unique situation, and it's an underserved market. I think to work specifically with moms and women in business, you have to have that understanding, and women want to work with other women. And so when I saw so many of my friends struggling with the technology and getting things in order and figuring out what to do when, I thought, hey, you know what? I can help you. And so that's really where I come from and why I do what I do. So
awesome. So when you say, you and I talked about it, and when we were talking, we talked about streamlining and automation. Can you tell me, what do you mean by streamlining and automation? Like, do you mean the softwares and systems, or is there other areas as well that can be streamlined and automated?
So actually, streamlining doesn't necessarily, I'm itching. Streamlining doesn't necessarily own systems, and it's a very common misconception that a lot of people have. They assume when I say systems that it means that I'm only talking about what's happening on the computer, and that is not true at all. Because a system and a process is just basically, if you want to put it in the simplest terms, it's a way of doing something, a particular task, and getting things done. And sometimes the most effective way to do something is with a piece of paper and a pen. But it's the steps that you take consistently to do that same action that actually becomes the system. Okay. And so that's what I can really help identify and work with streamlining. And if it's something that we can turn into an automatic computer process, absolutely, we'll do it that way too, because then you don't have to manually do that anymore. But to turn it into what you're doing it.
Right. So when you're saying automation or system, so to speak, it's kind of like when I talk about the number system or setting up a system for the numbers, I don't automatically mean a software. I mean putting a system into place, meaning steps to take. And so you're saying the same thing. It's basically there are steps to take to actually streamline your business so that you're not in a total chaotic circle and with your productivity and not getting anything done.
Right, because we tend to do that. We get interrupted a lot.
Yes. By anything and everything.
Right. We have kids, we have clients, we have other things that come up, appointments we have to do, school things. There's just so many things. And so if you don't have a really solid system in place, then it's hard to drop it and come back to it. So because you just forget what you're doing, and you end up wasting a lot of time figuring out, going, what the heck was I doing, and why did I write this down in my notebook to come back to it, because now I don't remember what I meant.
Right. And so what steps can we take to start automating some of those of our day-to-day tasks? I mean, are there certain things that us as mompreneurs and women entrepreneurs who have, our kids, they're in school, who have these interruptions and who may work sometime in the morning or afternoon. I know, like me, when my kids were here during Christmas break, I had to literally put a totally different system into place because it was like having kids home all day. I mean, because they were home all day. But for at least for me, my kids are in school at least for, a full day. So like by 2:00, if I systemize it, I can actually get some things accomplished. Whereas when they're home all the time, that's really more difficult. So are there things that we can do to start automating some of those day-to-day tasks, or what steps can we take? I want them to be able to walk away from this knowing, okay, you know what, I can put this into place or this into place, and I'll at least start seeing some of that chaos disappear.
Right. So I usually start all of my clients with getting their calendar in order and really just understanding what are the things that I actually have to get done today. So what comes into that is, really, I like to use what I call my time freedom formula. And I think you have the link to that. But is really setting aside the time in your calendar, whether that means color coding or whether it means labeling, however you choose to do it, because it's going to be your system. You have to design something that you're going to use. But it has to clearly lay out what you're planning to do. That doesn't mean that you're always doing those things at that time because, again, we get interrupted. But if you have that plan, then you automatically have up here, this is what I need to get done today. And then you can shift it around as the day goes on and as you need to accommodate your interruptions. So that's where I really start with is the calendar. And the other piece of the base step is really getting organized. If you have everything all over your desk all the time, you're always living in chaos. And sometimes it's a matter of simply clearing your space, and then your mind feels empty as well. If that makes sense, the visual clutter is really weighing you down. So those are two really quick things that you can do. The next thing that I would work on with my clients is writing down all those things, writing down what you're doing and writing down how you're doing it, because chances are if you know what you're doing, there's actually a better way, and you'll see how you kind of circle back throughout the day and do the same things over and over. And sometimes if you can just schedule to do that same thing all in one little block of time, you're going to get more done than having to keep coming back to it at different pieces throughout the day.
So kind of like keeping a diary.
Right.
So basically like having a notepad and me starting out and saying, okay, I did this, and then at this time I did this, and this time I did this, and then go through the day, and then tomorrow doing the same thing. And you're able to go back and analyze it and go, okay, wait a minute, 5 different times today I did this, whereas if I would do it all together, then maybe it wouldn't take me 3 hours versus just an hour to get all of them done. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. That's exactly it. And also you can see some of that time where you actually wasted the time. Like maybe you meant to log on to Facebook and make a post for your clients or your following or in your community, and you were going to do it for 15 minutes, but 45 minutes went by.
You got sucked in. That's the reason why I don't use Pinterest for my business, because it's way too dangerous. I'll stick with Facebook and Instagram. I have decided those are dangerous enough, but Pinterest is way too dangerous because I can spend hours on there just searching. So I think that Pinterest needs to be like one of the last ones I do until I have all my systems in place. Because like you're saying, you go, okay, I'm going to designate 20 minutes to go and do posts. And then an hour and a half later, you've done one post, but you've been on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest for an hour and a half. And so you haven't gotten anything done. And so, yeah, I can see that. So keeping a journal is kind of like a food journal. Like when your fitness trainer will tell you to keep a food journal so you can see your habits of what you're eating and how much you're drinking. Being able to actually have that journal of your daily, I like that idea actually, because then you can actually see, okay, this is not your calendar of what you're supposed to be doing, but a journal of exactly what you are doing. What have you been doing each day? Are you getting these things accomplished? And then when you go back and you look at it and you're not, instead of beating yourself up about it, which is what many of us would do, right? So instead of beating ourselves up about it, don't do that, but instead go back, reanalyze it and say, okay, what can I do better? And then the next day, keep the journal again to make sure that you're making those corrections, because it still has to be a mindful thing, right? You still have to be able to make that mindful thing. I mean, you can keep a journal and say, okay, whatever the hell, and then not make any changes. It's not going to do any good. Trust me. I have some that I've worked with. I can give you, it's like you saying, I can give you all the systems in place, but if you don't actually do something to make the change isn't going to happen. So that's a tool to help you make that change so that you can be more productive.
Right, and it's not something that you would be continuing for a long time either. I mean, you can tell a lot from one day, but if you want to see kind of what you're doing on an average week, you would want to do it, for the full 5 days. Now, if that's the holiday week, that's probably not a good week to do that.
No,
because you're not on your normal schedule. But as soon as you come back to, January and everybody's back at school, now you can start, because, these are like my normal, knowing that normal is never normal, but this is a typical kind of day, and, you're going to have some variation, but that's why you don't want to look at just one day, but looking at, a number of days to see.
Megan, hey Megan. Megan's wanting to know, do you ever use a digital tracker?
I'm not sure if she's talking about the kind where you have it on your web browser, or if she's talking about typing it into.
Oh, Megan, are you talking about like a timer, like a digital timer to time your, like how long you're on doing your task or whatever? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know. That might be what there's actually one that was actually recommended to me that's kind of like a digital timer, and it actually times you.
Okay, web browser, yeah.
It's on the web browser, yeah.
So you could do that, and that would be effective to break down what you're doing when you're actually on your computer. But knowing what you're doing even when you're off your computer is going to help you as well. So you don't want to focus just on my screen time, right? You want to make sure that if you're going in and journaling is taking you 2 hours, maybe that's effective, maybe it's not. But, that's the kind of thing. That's why you want to write down everything that you're doing. And you can do it real generally, like hour by hour, or you could do it real specific. Like I went and made a cup of coffee and I went and used the restroom. You can do as granular as you want. That's totally up to you. But the idea is that you get some clarity around what it is you're actually spending your time on versus what is that you planned to do. Because a lot of times they're real different.
Oh, God, yeah. And so it's important to include the stuff not only just with the computer, but also when you're on your phone or when you're journaling or when you're working on paperwork or something for a client or you're brainstorming, actually have all of it so that you know how much time is being spent where and on what.
Right. And maybe if you seem to struggle with creating content and you look at your typical week and you're like, actually, I didn't spend any time brainstorming content this week. You might have just found a key issue with your process.
That's because I avoided.
Now we cannot fix that.
You can ask my coach. I avoid it as much as possible. It's not a time thing. It's just something I avoid. But on the same time, you can't. So I mean, my problem is I'll avoid it until the very last minute of not being able to, and then because I have avoided it, it sucks that much more time out of my day when I have to sit down because I have no choice in the matter to actually get it accomplished so that I can then post. So, I mean, making sure it's part of my day so that it doesn't suck so much time is important.
Right, because you want to have the really clear headspace when you're doing something like that, and when you have that pressure and the timeline and the deadline coming, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So you just don't have that creative space anymore.
Right, right. See, I can see that, but I guess I'm gonna have to work on that avoiding part. See, I have clients who avoid their numbers, and I'll tackle numbers all day. I avoid other things. I avoid the things that most of y'all like. I don't like. So, I'm one of those ones that avoids that content thing. Yeah. So I can totally relate to that. But I like the journaling part of, and not, it doesn't have to be so descriptive, but actually keeping just a journal of knowing what your day-to-day stuff. You've got your calendar, it's telling you what you're planning to do, and you probably have your to-do list of what you're planning to do, but keeping a journal and saying, okay, this is what I've done, and being able to compare it and then say, okay, wait a minute, I need to reanalyze this, is really important. I mean, I can actually see where that would actually help so many people, especially when we have kids and we're trying to block out certain times and make them more productive.
Right. Right. I mean, and this is a principle for life and for business, right? I mean, we've all got things we're doing at home, and, as much as we're integrated, right, as you sit working from home, but, you can apply it to whichever piece you're focusing on or where you feel like you're struggling.
That's awesome. Awesome. Does anyone, I want to see if anyone else has any questions. Didn't you had something for a freebie, did you not?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell them about that?
Sure. So I mentioned it before. I said I have that time freedom formula, and this is actually going to walk you through doing exactly what we just talked about and putting it on the calendar and figuring out what is it you're actually doing versus what do you think you're doing. Because that's the key piece. Everybody wants to jump in and say, well, I plan my day. I use my planner, but if you're not using it effectively, it's not actually helping you. And so you can download that on my website. Do you want me to just say the link, or do you want to put the link in there?
Well, you can put the link in after after we're done with the live. Yeah, please. That would be great.
Okay. So it's at www.thejessicahansen.com/ITSTIME. It's time.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm going to ask if anyone had any questions. If not, I wanted to remind y'all that, of course, this will be up for 24 hours. And then after that, it can be watched through hey, Patricia, thanks for hopping on. It'll be available for 24 hours to watch. And then after that, it'll be available through my newsletter to watch the replay. So if you're not on my newsletter, make sure you sign up so that you can get the replay as well. And we have many more guests that are going to be appearing, because now that the new year's here, we're going to be doing like 2 to 3 a month. I know, right? We only did one in November and one in December, but that was because of the holidays and because of Christmas. And I wasn't, like you were saying, don't try to make that a normal work week and put all that pressure on you. There was no way. So we're back full force, and so this is going to be awesome. So I wanted to see, does anyone have any questions about the productivity, or anyone else have any other questions? Or if you do later, tag me or Jessica, and I'll make sure Jessica sees it. And she can answer as well. Again, it will be up for 24 hours. I'm going to give it a minute, but if I don't see any questions, then we're going to be done. I thank you so much for joining me today. I loved the tips. I'm actually going to probably do that journaling thing. I'll probably get in trouble compared to what I plan to what I actually do, but I'm actually going to do that because I think that'll actually help in some of the areas that I see some gaps that I think need to be fixed, and so that'll actually probably help me fix those gaps. So I like that. I like it's a simple task to actually help you, and I like that. It just takes pen and paper.
Oh, we always
and everybody has pen and paper. Something so simple. Okay, so I don't think anyone has any questions. So I want to thank y'all for joining us for this Sass It Up Live, where we're sassing up productivity. I totally appreciate y'all watching. I appreciate everyone who's going to watch the replay. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments. It will be up for 24 hours. And until next time, bye.